Welcome back, Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I just want to switch pace real quick. Been real busy painting and everything, and working on a lot of projects, and just want to take a little time and work on something for myself here. And if you're like me, uh, you're a little disappointed with these Zone Mortalis tiles and their lack of availability since the initial release. And if you're like me, you only bought a couple of them, or maybe you didn't get any at all, and they sold out too quick, and now you haven't been able to get them. And it's especially frustrating if you have like one of these boards and you're trying to build it, and you're basically held up by this. So I had mentioned a couple videos back that for Christmas, my brother and I had gotten a couple of the Ender 3 3D printers. And part of what had held me back forever to get one of these 3D printers is I just couldn't think, like, what am I going to print with this? I knew I was never going to want to print models with them, and, like, not really a big fan of, like, the printed terrain or anything. But in this situation, it was essentially limited by like the production, and now like you can't even get these things. So it's been like real frustrating. So I figured I would give it a shot and see what the deal was with the ones that are available online. So basically, like the way you print them is you're gonna print like these little 6x6 tiles, and you'll notice that like the actual tile itself, if you put like two of them next to each other, they're not going to line up like correctly how like the Games Workshop tiles are, because they don't have like the way this ridge is. It should be like every other one, so it's not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? But the idea is that the measurements are perfect. So essentially, all I did was I took like a piece of just cardboard, cut it out to like the right size, and then I took like four of these, and I went ahead and used Gorilla Glue, just because honestly I wasn't really sure what to use, and I have this Gorilla Glue that's like useless pretty much for anything that I would ever use it for. So I figured I would give it a shot for this at least, and it worked pretty good. But I did put like a ton of weight on top of it after I like glued it, just to like hold it down, and I checked on it a couple times too to make sure it wasn't moving. But the idea with this tile is, for me anyway, and you can do whatever you want. This is a situation where I was basically limited, and I wanted to like make a board, and I've been waiting months for these things to come back out. They still haven't come back out. So in basically each one of these tiles to print takes about like 4 or 5 hours. It's like a little less for the broken ones. So if you figure this is like 20 hours of print time, and I think I printed about like 12 of these little ones, which is like three of these full size like 12 by 12 inch tiles. I think I did like one spool did about like 12 of those. So you figure like one spool will say like $15 in plastic. So each one of these was about $5 to make. And then obviously I just used like scrap cardboard and then one thing of Gorilla Glue. So I guess you could say maybe $6 to make this. So I feel like that's a pretty good deal. Now, keep in mind that they're not correct. These things like aren't going to sit on here correctly. They don't have the correct ridges in them or whatever. It just is like more for looks what's on here, and it just it looks cool like the floor should look. You know what I mean? But essentially, what my idea is that for the first level of these, you're gonna always pretty much have like either 3 or 4 of these attached to each one. So I figured what I'm gonna do is I measured out the exact height of the floor, and then got a piece of cardboard that makes up the difference, because these are like a little bit thinner than the actual Zone Mortalis tiles. So I made up the difference so it's the exact height. Alright, so basically what the idea is with these is to basically create these tiles and use like the broken pieces like this. And I'm going to use the Nurgle's Rot like Games Workshop technical paint, and put it like down on here to the edge, and it's going to look like like a toxic slime break or whatever. I may even do like basically take like the take the technical paint and just run some like down out of these things to look like the reactors of like Busted, or maybe it's some kind of promethium leaking out of there or whatever it is. Essentially just the idea that like my ground level is like a little bit dangerous. You could still walk on these if you want, or you could have special rules where you're not allowed to walk on them, whatever. You can like obviously like just arrange this stuff however you want it. But my idea would be essentially that like maybe you leave the one piece off but you go ahead and just glue down like the 3 of these already measured out like perfect, and then you could basically like take this piece out and put another one of these down in the game if you wanted it. But by having like 3 of these like mounted in here like permanently, it's going to essentially give you like the full on effect of like a solid board. So even though these things don't line up perfectly with like the grooves how they're like supposed to, or whatever, the dimensions are still the same, the height will still be the same, so it'll essentially be able to interchange perfectly with the board. And then again, like, you don't have like the little ridges on this thing for the walls that'll like sit in place. So yeah, I mean, even if you glued these ones down into place, you can slide like the walls in and out at will. If you didn't check out the video on this one too, this was like a cool little conversion video we did, and I added a little bit of detail in since that video. But essentially, it's like a fully interactable wall, so you could like pull off the back piece, and it's like a computer desk inside there. And then here, just so you can see a little better, there's like little computer screens and like sirens, a couple bolters. But it's supposed to be like the front desk for like my little Palanite enforcer. So there's a video on how to make one of those. And if you don't want to use it like in your games, as like a little piece of interactive wall, like kind of like terrain or whatever, you can just put like, this back on here, and like, essentially you would never even know it's something different. Obviously it has like a little cool effect, but you would never know what it is. So, but yeah, that's basically the idea, is to just create some of these tiles and be able to use them, just because they've been so limited, and months have gone by and they're still not back in stock. So I'm sure eventually, like now that I have these, it'll probably come back into stock like tomorrow or whatever. But in the meantime, I mean, it's super cheap and super easy. And I found that in most games you're gonna have at least like 2 or 3 of these glued, or like stay in place no matter how you reconfigure your board. Sometimes you can have all 4 of them, but you're almost always gonna have 2 or 3. So I figured I'd make a couple pieces, mount a couple of these down like permanently. The only thing I noticed is that these do have like a little bit of like a clip into them, so like you wouldn't be able to just slide these in and out of here, because they have like a locking mechanism in place. So you do have to pay attention to that, or make them like a permanent addition to your board. So, but there it is, just a quick little update. Warhammer Man Studios, making your own Zone Mortalis floor tiles, in the meantime while you're waiting on Games Workshop. So, oh, and here's the Gorilla Glue I use for it as well. So if you want to make your own, you got all the recipes, guys, or the ingredients. Get at it. Show me what you do. Warhammer Man Studios, and I'm out of here.